Welcome to the writer's life, the place where you get the sight, sound, smells, taste of my particular writer's life, and where you get the truth about the writer's life, my truth, even though I lie for a living. Hit this subscribe button, and if you haven't already, punch the like button and tap the bell for notifications so that you don't miss out on one single really cool video. And go to vinzandri.com, www.vinzandri.com, for all your thriller needs. And you can even buy certain books direct and save. Talk about a lousy pitch, right, Elyse? So I have a very special guest whom I've known for a long time, almost, I think about 40 years, actually, this year. Wow.
That's crazy.
So if it's another 40 years, we'll be like about 100. Wow.
I think we should plan to be old.
Yeah, I don't know though. Zandris die young.
Oh no.
Most male Zandris don't live past 76.
Really?
Yeah, we just have like this finite number of beats.
All right. No, you're gonna buck the trend.
I don't know. But my mother's side, like they're like in their 90s and like all live by on their own for the most part. And, you know.
Don't mind me. I have the window open and like somebody's coming and going. I'm not sure what's going on.
Oh no! I hope it's not. Do you need your gun? Yeah, that could be bad. That could be really bad. So no, like everybody on my mother's side lives forever, but you know, I don't know. I wouldn't mind, you know, if I'm 76 and just drop dead like my old man did.
Well, my dad was 63.
63.
Yeah, and like
wow.
the older we get, the younger that seems.
That's right, because I'm 59 now. But you're younger than me. You're like 2 years younger than me.
Yeah, just 2 years.
Wow, you're just a child, Elyse.
No, I don't know about that.
We got some people chiming in already, but we'll hold off on any comments for a little bit. So Elyse Press, major. Tell me something. What bands are you into right now?
Right now?
Yeah, or are you still stuck in the 80s like I am?
I am. I feel like for the most part, like my love of music was at its height when I was in my like late teens to mid 20s, and it just froze there. Except for like a couple of bands that found their way in, like The Strokes or like Nada Surf. Other than that, like a lot of the stuff is just, I still like the older stuff that, you know, we liked back then when we first met and stuff like that.
Right. Yeah, I've been listening to the Jam like crazy, especially when I jog.
Yeah.
And I haven't forgotten. I owe you a CD. I haven't forgotten that yet. And XTC, the Chameleons, like all these albums. What's that?
It makes me happy. It brings me back to this time in my life, especially some of the earlier, like, you know, even like my late teens.
Right.
Really, you were like, you still had your problems, but you didn't have like, you know, like you didn't really have a lot of responsibilities yet.
Right. Yeah.
Like who knew that like in a year you'd have so many, right? Like, but you know, sometimes when I hear, this isn't exactly punk, but whenever I hear like the Icicle Works, I just smile because I think of us like seeing them.
Right.
No, look, they were playing that song at the living room and we were standing in front of the stage and we're all singing as loud as we can. We don't know the words.
Yeah.
You know, just like that kind of like joy is so like part of that. And I also think one of the reasons I always did like punk rock was because you're not going to like, you know, sit around, like people are like, oh, I listen to Adele and I drive around and I cry. And I'm like, I don't want to do that. You know, like.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I definitely liked, you know, Nirvana, but Nirvana came around at a point in my life where like, you're right. When I started taking on serious responsibilities. I was going to graduate school. I had a job. I had a couple of toddlers, you know, like in 94, 95, 96, whatever. And so I couldn't really pay that much attention to it. And, you know, as much as I liked REM, like during the 80s and the 90s, they lost me when they became like, you know, like God. And, you know, so like that, it wasn't until I actually got back into bands, actually in bands again. The one with my editor, Straw Dogs, you know, that I discovered things like Wilco, and I loved Summer Teeth, that album. The rest of it,
it's honestly, I feel like ashamed to say it, but yeah, like I never really got into them either because I don't really know them. They were people I know love them, but that was like past me experiencing like new music.
Right. They weren't a punk rock band by any means.
Yeah.
In fact, if anything, they were like, they had bluegrass influences.
Yeah,
and
more
things
like
that.
a teenage fan club or something.
Yeah, but I just thought that album, Summer Teeth, was beautifully produced. And my two favorite, aside from Jeff Tweedy, my two favorite members of the band were like the bassist and the lead guitarist. The lead guitarist did a lot of producing, and they were both kicked out, and then one of them died anyway. And then I thought after that, like they just, you know, so that was like I listened to that album like every day one summer, like, you know, forever. Still listen to the Beatles almost every day.
You know what? I don't listen to a lot of music because, so this is like kind of a segue into writing, but when I'm writing, I need absolute silence.
Right.
And I mostly listen to music right now in my car. And actually, a lot of times, I don't know, I find it almost distracting. So I just like listening to NPR while I'm driving around. So right now, I'm kind of like in a little bit of a music vacuum. Like I'm not actively listening to a lot right now.
Right. So Elyse is, but aside from like being the Führer of Rhode Island, the madam, I don't know, whatever. Like aside from owning it, you're always on like television. You're in a bunch of major magazines, no pun intended. You run like 2 or 3 magazines. Plus you edit and you write a bunch of articles. You know, like what's your day like?
It kind of is like a switchboard operator. So like my, you know, day job, which is I love more than I just love it so much. But it's a Rhode Island publisher of 4 regional monthly magazines that each cover a different part of the state, and one is statewide. So, you know, it's just developing the cover stories. And, you know, on a typical day, it could be, you know, like we try to assign a lot. We have a very small editorial team. It's myself, a managing editor, and a part-time editor. And we write a lot. We try to assign a lot, but there's still, you know, even some articles might come in and they still require a lot of time and editing. So I'm just like constantly getting emails with like pitches and photos. And I mean, it's just, it's funny. I really try to sort of like, I have to shut everything out when I'm working. You know, if I'm even like checking in on a friend on Facebook or something, it's just got to be like a little fun break. But I need to just really heads down focus because there's so much I'm doing all the time. And it's so easy to lose my train of thought. And then there is still writing that I do for our magazines. And I'm not great at writing at night. So what I try to do is build in a little time during the day or on the weekend where I can really focus and write, because I always try to remember too, like, even though this article I have to write might be one of like 8 I need to write for the month, that's still somebody's story and I want to tell it well. So I can't just be like checking it off a list. I need to just devote, you know.
And how many words are like your typical story? Because I assume they're cover
like
stories.
Yeah, like a home story. I mean, there might be like 500 words.
Okay.
You know, they're not long, but there's a lot of them.
Right.
You know, and it's funny because I still will take on a couple of like freelance assignments, And
Right.
I just took on one, and it just, like, whooped my butt. Like, it was so much it was really like, every magazine, it almost has, like, their own dialect, and I felt like I understood what I had to write, but I couldn't do you know what I'm trying to say? Like, I couldn't hear it,
Right.
like, the accent kinda thing,
Yeah.
and it just took me so long to write it, and then when it was done, like, I feel like I'm still kind of exhausted. So, that
Yeah.
was one of
Yeah.
my questions for you is, like, do you find writing exhausting, like, as much as you love it? Like, sometimes I just need to just zone out for an hour after I'm done writing and editing and reading and
Yeah.
all that stuff.
Yeah. My body and my eyes, especially, know when to quit, and that's why I write in these what I call sprints. It's different for a fiction writer because, like, I still do some nonfiction for about an hour a day. I always try to find that right client who's looking for secondary journalism, so I don't have to do too much research. And right now, it's a ghostwriting job, um, you know, but that's lucrative. Understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And you're right. Like, so I'll typically start the day at like 7 in the morning, 7:30, and spend that hour writing those 750 words. And sometimes it's 1,000 words, 1,200 words, or whatever. Which I don't mind because I get paid more for it. But and sometimes I'm like, wow, I really have no fucking clue what I'm writing here, but I know it's good and I know it's right, and I know it'll be fine and accepted by like whatever magazine they put it in or blog. Um, and then I switch to fiction, and you can almost, and I've spoken about this before, you can almost feel your brain click and switch to creative mode. Not that journalism or nonfiction isn't creative at all. That's not it at all, because everybody has their own style, their own way of doing things, their own method of creativity for making the story alive. But there is a distinct difference between the nonfiction side and the fiction side, and sometimes it's almost like when I'm writing the nonfiction, that's like the calisthenics that warm me up for the fiction.
Yeah.
And then, like, I notice the clock when I'm writing the nonfiction.
Mhm.
And when I'm writing the fiction, time means nothing. It just, I become the conduit, and
Yeah.
and I'm like, and like right now, I'm trying to get the first 135-page book out for American Crime Story. I was hoping it'd be out this week. It's a Bear Media story. And there's going to be 4 of those back to back. And I'm just going through that final read through, right? And I find every excuse in the book to be writing new fiction instead of just taking the hour and a half or 2 hours to go through that final read through. Because to me, that's not writing. It's doing something that's mechanical, right?
Yeah.
So that's almost more exhausting than creating. But you're right, it does. There are certain books and certain stories that'll kick your ass. And
Yeah.
you got to take a nap or something.
Yeah, totally. I mean, like, I'll write some cover stories for us too. Those are longer. And this
Right.
article that I just finished was like, 1,200, 1,300 words. It wasn't enormous, but it was just very particular. But yeah, like if I'm writing something that's more like intuitive or like near and dear to my heart, and I know the subject really well, that's like when it's like, oh, this is the best.
Right.
And you find words come together. I think I had said this to you once. It feels like you're driving with the windows down and the radio blasting. It just is like
Right.
the best feeling.
Oh yeah, yeah. When it comes easy like that, it really is. And then there's just some things, I guess sometimes there's things that, like it used to be for me, like some things came harder, but I'm in this new phase where I just do one clean draft and that's it. And then off to the copy editor. I don't want a development editor. I don't want that, like the story is what it is. and no plot outlines, no nothing. Just start it and see where it goes. Sometimes I don't even have an idea. I just start. But and I think a lot of songwriters, the good ones, eventually get like that too. They're like, I don't have any idea, and I just, you know, like you see Paul McCartney doing it in the new Let It Be, right? Like he's got just his Hofner bass, just 4 strings, and you just see him like, you know, and he's making Get Back. He has no idea what he's doing, and until like 2 minutes into it, like he's like, no, there's something, you know. And Ringo's watching him, you know, going like, you know, but it's a great moment of creativity and watching how someone that brilliant is creating a song, you know. Yeah. And I think it can be that way for us too. But then I'll have like I'll be driving and I don't have a radio in my Jeep, like, and the CD player doesn't work anymore, so it's total silence in my Jeep. It's like just the opposite of your situation.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, I don't know if you've read my story, Bingo Night. It doesn't matter if you have. But it's these 2 morons. I only have one story about them, Tony and Stan. And they work, they you know, they like got kicked, they got their GEDs in high school. I'm like, you know, they're just stupid. And they, you know, they work for like a flower company driving a truck. Anyway.
Have they been characters and other stuff?
They have shown up in other stuff, yes.
Okay.
And they're morons. Anyway, so like, I'm like, oh, I could totally see like Stan saying like, look I got this great idea. We're going to go to Mexico and then we're going to cross the border and pretend we're illegal aliens. And then they'll give us $2,200 a month and cell phones and all that stuff, you know. So I could just see them trying to do that. You know what I mean? You know, like, and actually there's probably some truth to that. People probably do try to do that, you know.
Maybe.
You know, but anyway, but that's the kind of thing I'll think about, like while driving.
Yeah.
And if it sticks in my head, then I'll write it, you know. But if it goes Gone with the Wind, then I usually don't.
Well, it's funny too. Like, so my lane right now is totally like lifestyle journalism, and like that just never shuts off. You know, like I feel like almost anywhere I go, or even like playing around on Instagram, I'm just like, that's a story, that's a story, that's a story.
Sure.
I just go down rabbit holes and I'm just emailing myself notes and stuff because, you know, of course, like I'm covering Rhode Island most of the time.
Right.
Excuse me, burp. And so I just, you know, it's like even if I go, you know, wandering like a store or, you know, a local business, it's always like, oh, you know, I've got to write about this. And so like, even when I'm like, this weekend, I'm not doing anything, you know, like next thing you know, I'm like, oh, you know, like it like kind of doesn't ever shut off, which I'm not complaining. It's just it is what it is, you know.
It's amazing. One of my loyal Big Philly, I'm going to say fans, but you're like a friend, just said, I love this lady's chill vibe.
Thanks, Big Philly.
And you have so much responsibility. I don't know if I could take it. I think I would crack.
It's a lot sometimes. Like I was even like saying to like, you know, the team at work, like being a little too honest maybe, but I'm like, you know, sometimes before like the next press cycle, I always have like a little bit of a panic because I have so much responsibility to assign 4 cover stories and make sure we get the photos for those. And I mean, that's just like one nugget of the magazine, you know, but there's so much, and it never ever stops, which I don't want it to. But an editor who sort of trained me on the job said, you know, it's relentless and you'll never get ahead. So we try as much as we can to streamline stuff and even like plan some like evergreen content, you know, that can be used whenever. But so much of it needs to be done just like right now.
Yeah.
You know, like I'm going to do like articles for the holidays. I couldn't have done them last year, you know.
Sure.
Unless it was a home tour or like maybe a restaurant, but not really. It needs.
That's right. You're in Christmas mode now, probably, right?
I am in Christmas mode. Yeah, we just October went off to the press, and November is when like our holiday guide comes up in one of the magazines. And then the other magazines have like shop small articles, and then December comes, and then we've already got like stuff going on for January. I mean, it's like it's a lot, you know.
And then the next, I see you, and then I see you on TV because you got to promote everything. I see you. Well, off to this. I'm off. You know, staying at a Airbnb or a bed and breakfast in Smithfield or wherever. And you're just like when you're not writing, you're writing. So how does that affect the rest of the family? Are they just like, there's mom, but she's not really there?
My family has been so patient and so supportive because I mean I've been doing this even when it wasn't my full-time job.
Right.
I'd be sitting at the dinner table and get an idea and go take off. Like
right.
I remember like one Mother's Day, you were like, "Oh, are you doing anything special with the family?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm on a deadline."
Yeah, fuck that. Yeah, right.
So I think I like to think like my boys see that like you can work hard doing what you love, and it sort of collides because I do love the work, and I also am so honored to represent the company on TV or wherever.
Right.
Because like I'm so proud of what we do. We have such a high bar for ourselves, but I do get a lot of invites, and I find now that I try to only say yes to ones that I'm like, yeah, that sounds awesome.
Right.
And also like I found this great little lane for myself too of like in-state travel writing. And I got kind of smart about it. Where last year, instead of just writing from looking things up online, I was like, perhaps you will offer me a stay,
Sure.
So
which is the smartest thing you can do.
I know. I feel like as writers too, like, we're kind of in it for the love of the game for the most part. And so I feel like
because it's so lucrative.
Yeah, like you kind of have to build in these perks for yourself because that's where you're going to get them.
Right.
Like
Absolutely.
I remember when I did my first craft book, somebody said, you're never going to get rich being a craft author. I'm like, what? This is all I want to do. And it was like, no, it's not all I can. It's not all I can do.
Right. Yeah, for sure. You're just reminding me of obviously you must take on some freelancers, and I think I would sweat that out a little bit, waiting for the copy to come in, especially if it comes in late. So I'm like, back in 1990, I would have been your worst nightmare. I had pitched Hudson Valley Magazine, which is very similar in demographic and topics or whatever to what you're doing in Rhode Island. Only obviously it focuses on the Hudson Valley. So anyway, I pitched the editor on 2 stories, one on canine cops and the other on bed breakfasts in the Hudson Valley region or something like that. And I forget. I don't know how in the world. I was like 25, right? And I didn't know my ass from a hole in the ground on how to write a feature article. But I somehow convinced her, and she's like, okay, I'm assigning you both these major features, like back to back, monthly, magazine. And I remember like, I did go out with the cops and I did that thing, but when it came to the bed and breakfasts, I just sort of drove around and I like stopped in one of the places and I'm like, I just completely didn't. I wasn't into it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and so I tried to fake my way through the whole thing, and she gets the copy. There's like 2 days to go to press, and she's like, "This, I can't take either of these, but I'm stuck. I gotta like just." So she like took snippets of everything and rewrote just everything, and which I'm sure she wanted to kill me, and like. I got credit for both, but it was like either I think one of them was like we split the byline, the other one was like written by somebody, and I was like the stringer or something like that.
Yeah, that happens to me a lot, and occasionally I'll do so much rewriting that I feel like it's almost a disservice to give somebody like the full byline.
Right.
And that's when I will wrestle with it, but sometimes I'll be like, and Elyse Major, but
Right.
because I feel like there's so many people with hi Joe.
Hey,
There's
Joe.
so many people who have like great enthusiasm and
Right.
they'll send a great pitch. And then their article, it just needs like so much work.
Right.
But you want to keep their voice in there.
Right.
So it really is, it is like a struggle. But I think one thing that I felt like during the pandemic when everything was just falling apart, I just always, from that time on, I just always have a plan B, plan C, plan D in my pocket. Like something doesn't come in on time, I'll pick up another story.
Right.
Like I just have all these like plan Bs because I really also want there to be like a calm tone around the office. If something doesn't come in, I don't want anybody screaming and crying and yelling. Just come up with a backup. Like,
Right.
we're not curing cancer. We're making magazines somebody may or may not pick up on the way out of the market. Like,
Yeah.
I try to keep it in check. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
Right.
it's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. By the way, this editor ended up hanging herself in the office like 10
No.
years later. Yeah.
Oh no. Oh, that's a
Yeah.
shame.
Yeah. She was just, I don't know. I hope I didn't draw. I feel a little guilty, like, because I feel like I contributed just a small segment to a
No.
small segment of her depression.
No, and like cute little Vince, like that was when you probably still had your little flopsy hair, and she was
Oh,
like,
I'm
"Oh,
absolutely. And then she still probably was doing that job, and then she probably saw I got that book deal, and she was probably like, "You gotta be fucking kidding me!"
exactly."
Like I'm sure because it was like soon after that. I'm not saying that was the reason, but I'm just saying,
Sure.
but she was probably just very happy, whatever.
Vince
But
is all like convicting himself of like murder in the whatever degree.
I know, like I'm like I don't know. I hope. I mean, I'm not gonna have to answer that for that in this life, but you never know in the afterlife. But
I
in the
think there might
afterlife
be a
is
story in there somewhere for you.
yeah. So you're not like oh my god, I think I'm just gonna go to Chat GPT and set up the magazine's topics for the month.
No, and you know me, I'm like such the like Luddite, like I'm just
Yeah,
like
you're an analog all the way.
I am. I'm like print,
Yeah.
books, magazines. So yeah.
No, that's the way to be. What do you think about this whole? Because we've both in fiction world and in nonfiction world. Boy, have I gotten many emails. Mass emails. Like, if we even slightly suspect you're using Chat GPT, you are done. You're finished. You're just whatever. But then they turn around and they'll say, now you can use it as a research tool or a writing prompt tool, but that's as far as it goes. If we catch anybody using copy, because it's otherwise, I really don't think they care, but it's copyright infringement because you have no idea how much you have contributed to ChatGPT, and I have contributed to ChatGPT.
I know.
And they're really stealing our words.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I kind of hate like society. No, I mean, there's so much tech like that. I just am sort of like, like meta.
Yeah.
So, like, you don't even want to get me. I'm starting it myself, but I'm like, don't get me started on meta. But
Yeah.
I mean, in some ways, social media has opened the doors to like all kind of different things. I
Right.
find a lot of story leads on Twitter, on Instagram, on people's Facebook. They'll be like, "Oh, I just went to this delicious restaurant." I'm like emailing my managing editor.
Right.
But I don't like, I had gotten locked out of an account, never got back in. Account I had for like years. And I remember when it first happened, I was really like sad. And then I thought, I'm getting sad because I'm locked out of a photo album online that I don't own,
Yeah.
And so my boys, if they can hear me, are going to roll their eyes. But it's like, when the app is free, you're the product. And so I have
Right.
I have such a mistrust and a love, hate, hate. Like, I don't know, like
Right.
it's such a great sharing tool, but you
Yeah.
can get locked out. People are trying constantly get hacking you out of your account. You do all this like work to make a nice little post, and then you have all this like goofy like share it on blank fans. It's just like, what is
Right.
this?
Oh, it can just be. I mean, I actually, the way I selfishly handle social media, and you probably have noticed this, being a friend on almost all the platforms, like I post stuff that I have to post. Like this will be posted on all social media, but I avoid like the plague. I avoid looking at other people's feeds, and if I happen to see a feed, it's purely by mistake. Because you can't help it sometimes,
Yeah,
right? You,
I'm
you see
kind of
what's at
on
the
off
top.
a little bit. Sometimes I feel kind of guilty, because people will be so, excuse me, responsive and like, celebratory about things that I think, oh, I don't want to just be like dropping my own stuff and not being
Right,
social back. So
right. Because
like
that's
on
the point of
Facebook,
it.
'cause, I mean, I feel like they
Right,
all have their different use.
right.
Like Facebook is like the friend one, right? And a lot of times I
Yep,
don't even share a lot of work stuff because I'm like, I don't want people to get fatigue about like, oh, now I'm here.
right,
That's more like Instagram, which I feel like is more strategic for like work.
right.
And then Twitter is
Influencing.
almost like getting news stories and like just like, nothing.
Twitter does, or X,
Oh
does
yeah.
absolutely nothing for me. Again, it's one of those things where I post and don't really look at it.
Yeah.
Instagram, okay, I get that. But I think I spend most of my useful time. I think I get the most out of LinkedIn.
I kind of hate like LinkedIn right now. Like I remember when I first joined LinkedIn, I always felt like all proud of like, oh, I'm amassing these like actual connections with
Right,
people who I've met, or like, oh, this editor wrote me back. Now we're connected. And now it's
right.
like, seems like the Wild West. Like, oh, some real estate guy in Texas wants to.
Oh yeah,
I'm
you
just
get
like,
like my name is Rajesh, and I'd like to be your editor. And it's like, dude, no, and stop. Did you get my email? And it'll always be like they'll call me Zandri. They'll be hello Zandri because in India Zandri Zandri is a first name.
really?
Yeah, which I don't ask me where that came from, but so like I might be part Indian. I have no idea.
It could be.
Maybe that just explains the accent. I don't know.
But I
I
do
just lost my
enjoy,
Pakistani audience.
like I enjoy Instagram for like what I initially signed up for was like
Right,
find, pretty places, share pretty places,
right,
like
right. Has it ever dawned on you, Elyse, that you could, if you wanted to? Now, by the way, Elyse has like how many books do you have out? 3? I
I
know you
have,
have like 3 or 4 translations too,
yeah, I have,
French.
look, I have everything right near me too.
Oh well, let's see.
Tinker Treasure's first book.
Very nice. Yeah, that was a beautiful book. Or is a beautiful book, I should say.
Seaside Tinker Treasures, second book.
Yeah,
Well, I call it Baby Girl, Little Sister.
yeah.
And co-authored this mess. I Modify IKEA. At one point, had 4 couches in my living room. Back to the nice family.
Right.
And right now, my own home is in this book.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
I have all my show and tell right here handy.
But I mean, have you ever thought about like, okay, well, I mean, you love your day job. You just said it. You've said it a few times, but you could conceivably, uh, become an influencer for with all your connections for Instagram, and probably make quite a bit of money while writing your books
I
and
feel like I'm
articles and
kind of
stuff
like
like
I'd
that.
be like an old fluencer.
I doubt it. I mean, I look at you and I think you're like 25, but I mean, I don't. I mean, I know there are influencers paying their way through college.
No, I know. I get invited to things like like PR events, like in Rhode Island, and I'm around a lot of influencers, and they're, like building up their stuff. Like for me, I'm just happier writing. Like I feel like a lot of times, like, I'm at the event for like maybe a different reason than they are. Like they're,
Right.
because I don't have a ton of followers on Instagram, and so nobody like, but there have been times where like somebody has sent me a dress or shoes. They just want me to wear it. And I'm like, hey, that's kind of cool.
Right. Oh, I sent you those.
Huh?
I sent you those.
Will you send me a dress or some shoes?
I sent you a dress and some shoes because I'm transitioning into Andrea, and it's not Andrea, it's the more artsy Andrea.
Oh, I love that affectation.
Because my mother told me that if I came out as a girl, I was going to be Andrea, and so my daughter kept calling me Andrea, which was funny.
I think I was going to be Evan.
Don't worry, everybody, I'm not transitioning. That was a joke. But
Side note, he's transitioning.
Yeah, now my sister's going to tell my mother, and my mother's going to call me screaming at me.
Exactly.
One last question, and I'm just dying. Now, do you get free lobster rolls?
Well, if I'm doing like an experience piece somewhere, it can happen. But it's not a given.
It's not a given?
No.
I mean, I would willingly drive out to Rhode Island, on a research trip just to get a free lobster roll.
I know, they're the best.
No.
We could collab on a lobster roll tour.
Yeah. Just eat as much free lobster rolls as we could. So listen,
it's so good.
Where can people find you? Well, I mean, you're all over the place. But is there any place specifically you want them to go to?
I think I'm.
Right, and then we'll look a little bit at the comments.
Yeah, and Big Philly, you're awesome. I love all these comments.
Yeah, and he's awesome, dude. And we got Linda and hi, Linda. We got Joe Sprague. No. Might be a couple others in there.
Yeah, right now I think I'm most active on my Instagram, which is Elyse Elizabeth Major, because the other one was hacked. I was hacked out of. So that one was Elyse Press Major, and I can't get back into it. And my Facebook, I still have the Tinker Treasures account, but like it's kind of a little bit on the dormant side, and I haven't posted on my blog in like 2 years.
Well, speaking of that, I did have a question. I don't really blog anymore either.
I loved your blog.
Thank you. But in its place, I have Substack and I have this now. So like the podcast has sort of taken over.
Yeah.
Will there be an Elyse Press podcast coming soon?
I hope not. No, I'm kidding. You know what? Like the podcasts, it's like everybody and their brother, right? Like
everybody's got them, yeah.
So,
but they're so interesting.
I know, but
I love doing them, and I think, and I don't mean to interrupt you. You're the guest. You should have the soapbox. But my whole thing was I almost didn't start it because there's so many writing blogs, or not writing blogs, but writing podcasts out there. But it's all the same thing about like, what's your new book about? What's the plot? Where'd you come up with the characters? What message do you want this book to convey? Which I can't stand that question. But I wanted to do something about the writer's life, like where people like you, it's not just about the writing, it's about living the life.
Yeah.
And so I think this fills a little bit of a void.
Absolutely. And I feel like you really have so much to say that it is a worthwhile listen, because, like your whole like comeback story and, how you make
my wilderness years.
But also like, how you are such like a workaday writer, right? You like 6 days a week, no holidays off, biting the nail,
Right.
So
yep.
I mean, I think that's really, and that's another thing too, is like I feel like, so there's this quote from like William Faulkner, who we love, where it's like, don't be a writer, be writing. And I feel like when you find what you really want to write about, that will happen. Because I can remember when I first graduated college, I thought I was going to be a screenwriter, and I talked about being a screenwriter all the time. But guess what? I remember. I was never writing anything. Right. So I found like when I got into this sort of like, lifestyle, home, craft, like it just comes right out. And I think to myself, we're getting like a pink warning. But then it's like you are writing when you
Can't think
find
with.
that thing to do, and how
Right.
lucky we are that this is our livelihood.
Oh, to me, when I started doing this full time, I felt like, so this is what retirement is like, because this is, if I had a day job, like this is what I would do if I retired. And so I've been retired for 25 years.
Yeah, like when people talk about like their countdown to retirement, I feel like that does not sound fun to me. I would still be wanting to do this.
No, I'm gonna face plant at my laptop. God willing. God willing.
Same. Yeah,
All
that'll be
right.
me.
And with that, we're gonna say goodbye. Thank you so much for showing up
So
and
much
giving.
fun.
I know you're busy. Thanks for giving us this time. And will you come back?
Absolutely.
All right. If you're not on like Jay Leno or what? Well, am I really dating myself? Is like Jay Leno way gone? Like
I know.
what's?
What if you said like when I'm on Carson?
I almost did.
If I get invited to the couch, I'll be so excited.
Okay. All right. Look at you. Have a great day. I know you have a lot of stuff to do, and we will talk soon.
Okay. Bye.
All right. Thanks for chiming in, everybody. I really
Thanks,
appreciate
everybody.
it. And I will talk to you guys not tomorrow, unless there's a Black Swan event, but I'll try to come to you guys on Sunday. And that's it for now.